Sprinting in. Yeah.
Early if you're on time.
Yeah. He had what, like a 5-minute rule or something?
Oh,
like
yeah.
that? Khakis, this whole different.
He's big on
time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're in trouble.
Yep.
That's what it was?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Me in college always struggled, man.
the way it worked last game. Do you feel like that's kind of what you hope for, envision, the balance with the run game and the throwing game?
Yeah, I think that's always the best case scenario. But again, I reference what I said last week. So often in the NFL, with how hard it is every game, not everything's always clicking. You know, I would say even there were points last game we felt the pass game wasn't clicking the way we wanted it to. We were able to rely on the run for a bit before we could balance it back out, and that the ebbs and flows they continue all the way through the year. I wouldn't say I approach any game with a perfect scenario in mind, how it plays out and what they give us. If we can take advantage of it, that's what we're going to do.
You talked a lot about leading up to that game. You talked a lot about making the adjustments in the second half. The last game, you scored 27 points. What was the halftime discussion where you all came out and had that offensive burst like that?
Yeah, really, we started the game well also. We had two really good, probably our best drives of the game were our first two drives that we just kept stacking plays together and put points on the board. And I know D'Amico has referenced it. We kind of, I'll say fell asleep a little bit there at the end of the half that we can't let happen. And most of halftime was about snapping back. We felt good about what we were seeing. We felt good about what we were doing. There were some minute adjustments here and there, but no big ones. It was more how do we get back on track? How do we play the way we were playing early in the game and continue that? And then the defense. Defense helped a lot. You get 4 turnovers and short fields. That's massive for an offense. We score 41 points, and you look up at the end of the game. We don't have a lot of yards. And that's a credit to the defense. It's awesome.
Running out of the pistol, what are the advantages of doing that as compared to other formations that you may use?
Yeah, I think it really ties to a lot of things, like it ties to the run game, the pass game, different ways we can manipulate what the second level does with how we approach things out of pistol, different ways for the quarterback to see things, not under center, but now he's in gun, he's further removed. It's a little easier in pistol than gun to get some play fakes going on. That influence the second level as well. Like there's just a lot of small things that it helps with, and then there's some issues with it also that you try to avoid, and that's a balance we're always trying to strike.
I know you're focused on the team, but is it any more special to play in Green Bay considering that you're from the area?
Well, I've been there a few times now. I think it's special just because. When you go to Lambeau, and the history that's in Lambeau it's one of the coolest venues in the NFL to go play a road game at. It's the fans are always there 100% of the time, like early grilling, brats, all that stuff. You see it every time you roll into the stadium, and then once you're in the stadium and you just see what it looks like, it's just so unique. It's different than really any other stadium in the NFL. I'd say at this point, that really is what makes it special for me more than going to Green Bay, where I spent a lot of time. That's kind of worn off now after my fourth or fifth trip. But just Lambeau itself is always a really cool experience.
What qualities did you see in Kinder Green that made you think? You had some background practicing at that at fullback with the Steelers, but just what kind of jumped out to make him a candidate for that? And do you have any other offensive linemen raising their hands? I would imagine. Want to do that too? Yeah,
really any offensive lineman that's not in the game is a willing participant to roll out in there if they can. But Kendrick in particular, he's got speed, he's got twitch. He jumps off the tape with how he moves, how quick he goes, and he's really tough. And that's all in that specific game and what we were doing with him. That's really all we were looking for, and he was all in on trying to get it done.
Statistically, it's been a slow start for Dalton, but yesterday CJ explained a lot of the usefulness that doesn't show up in a box score or advanced stats, what Dalton does, how he's important to aligning things and fills guys in on stuff from the offense. Can you kind of explain how he kind of jumped into that role and how he ended up doing that for you guys on offense?
Yeah, I'd say he kind of took that upon himself, and we have a lot of movements in our offense. There's some different formations, there's some different words, and when you have somebody back there that's not always only the quarterback, so everyone's not asking one guy all the questions. When you have somebody else back there that can just quickly give an answer. No, you're here, or you got a motion after this, or just really quick responses to get people on track is huge. And he really takes pride in doing that, and that's helped CJ immensely, I know. And then, I know statistically he hasn't had the greatest start as far as receptions, but we've missed a couple throws, that him and CJ are grinding through the connection. He's had some ops that we haven't made. And as the year goes, just like it has with a lot of the guys that we started the year that way, that'll continue to click.
Bobby, you're taking on a defense that leads the NFL in takeaways and and turnover differential. What stands out about their secondary that creates challenges for quarterbacks?
Yeah, they fly around. They know what they're doing. They're on the details of their defense. I think Halfley does a really good job, as far as schematically putting them in the right spots and letting them go cut it loose and play what they see. When they get there, they make the play almost every time. Like every mistake against this defense is costly. And that's in the pass and the run game. You get loose with the ball in the run game, they make you pay. And there's been a number of fumbles that have been on the ground this year also. So that's really big for us. Just our emphasis this whole week has been protect the ball and how intentional we have to be in doing that, and how the scout team has to give us great looks at making sure that we do that in this game, because that's going to be a huge factor.
What do you remember about you and Matt being young and on the same coaching staff together?
A lot. That probably can't be a lot.
What was from then to now? What's y'all's relationship like?
Oh, that's he's a great person, So I mean, we chat here and there, like a lot of coaches that you're no longer on the same staff with, but you have a good relationship with, and are friends with. Matt, whenever we're outside the season and we have the combine or we have other events where coaches are gathering, I'm always talking to him, and his brother Mike I know really well. He's in LA. They're just good people. That's the number one thing.
Is it kind of crazy thinking back to that? That's one of the most popular pictures whenever you talk about like coaching pipelines. Is it crazy when you think about that Washington staff now and where everyone is and where you are?
It's wild how it's branched out. Yeah, there were a lot of guys that, we had a very young staff, and I think in Washington that showed as we continued to learn and develop and went through our time there. But everyone, I always give a ton of credit to Mike Shanahan. Like Mike Shanahan knew how to teach coaches, how to coach players and teach players, and just hammer in scheme and hammer in detail. Like he was really good at it, and I think it shows with where a lot of them have gone.
How valuable was it to have Joe Mixon back last week, and how do you carry that over into this week against Green Bay?
Yeah, it's always, anytime you get a good player back, it's always helpful for sure. I would say he made some really good plays in that game, and would love to see that continue every game if we could. But the other thing that really jumped off in the last game was we really blocked well up front. We had great intent. We were on the details of what we had to do. We were moving people that we needed to move, and that's a New England's historically a very tough scheme, and our guys up front did a really good job to give Joe and Damian some daylight.
You talked a little bit about growing up around the area and going to games at Lambeau. Do you have a favorite memory from your time growing up?
It's a bad memory. I was in the stands at one game. I think I was in like 8th grade or something like that, and the Packers got down early by like 21 points, and I remember the fans next to me were I just couldn't take the negativity anymore. I walked right out of the stadium, walked 1.5 miles to my house. Like, that's Green Bay, So that's probably the one that sticks out the most. You don't get that in the NFL a lot. No. I don't know if I would have done it in the winter.
All set?
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
Let's go. Oh, John's gone. You're up, man. I love it. He is.
Talk about how well they're running the ball and what that does for play action.
Yeah, obviously, like basically the crux of their offense is designed around that. They're top 5 in a lot of categories in the run game. I've always thought Jacobs was a really good back. Just really respected him every time I've gone against him. They're doing a really good job. It's sort of like the start of everything they do in their offense. I mean, you can talk about the explosives and where they rank in explosive passing game. It probably ties in directly a lot to their run game and having to respect that. So, I think the other thing is he's really good at falling forward for kind of those extra couple yards or just not getting knocked back. So you just keep them manageable behind the front of the sticks and those sort of things. So a lot of kind of hidden yardage in that run game. So we've got to be really good at being physical and getting hats to the ball to sort of stop that for sure. But directly tied into what they do in the pass game.
Along those same lines, talking about the run game, you have some injury issues right now with the linebacker position. How much is that next man up mentality going to be for those linebackers?
Yeah, I mean, again, everywhere that we play, that's part of what we do and part of the mantra. Honestly, it's going to probably be like this for as long as you're covering football and as long as you let me coach. So, we feel good about all the guys, and it's been a really good start to the week so far, just in preparation and whatever team we're able to field out there, we'll be ready to go. Oh, sure. Go ahead. Okay, sure.
What about Will Anderson's performance last week impressed you most?
The 3 sacks? No. I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, just, I mean, I think actually Meek mentioned at one point, you could kind of tell, like you can tell with Will. I mean, he's always up, but then there's some times where you're like, man, I don't even want to be around this guy because he's that up. So, he really, one of our I would say one of like kind of our themes last week was sort of like bring our own juice. And we understood like what we were going to, go on the road and who knew what the weather was going to be like, all those things. And kind of we were preaching like, man, we got to bring our own energy and Will really like took that to heart. And so like you could tell right from the jump, like pregame warmups and kind of where he was from like almost taking it upon himself to be the heart of the team in terms of the energy and what we were trying to bring. So to see that sort of translate into the success he had, I mean, it was really cool. Just, I know the stats are great. And then honestly, I just always say this, like with him, you don't even see some of the stuff. Like if there was a stat for setting edges or like just closing gaps down or forcing cutbacks to other players, like those sort of things. I mean, the TFLs and the sacks are amazing, but he does a lot of other things in the structured defense to really help out. So it's just he's fun to be around for sure.
Aziz is an impressive guy on the field. Aziz is a strong tackler, impressive player. What do you enjoy about working with him, not on Sundays?
With Aziz, I would say that's a good question. I would say Aziz is his own man, and I mean that like he's not afraid to be himself and have interests outside of the game and belief in who he is. And I always appreciate people like that, that just have maybe a different perspective on life. So I enjoy like you catch him in the calf sometimes or somewhere and you just can have a sort of outside of the building conversation with Aziz. So I really appreciate his perspective on life. How's that?
Sure. Autry add to the defense?
I would say he's toughness first and foremost. I would say he's a very unique rusher, just as a sort of, not really I want to say hybrid, but as a big end and an inside rusher. I mean, he's had success at both spots, so it's he just offers some different pitches in terms of when he rushes inside, he rushes like an end inside, which is hard sometimes for guards. A lot of times offensive linemen interior can, there's not a lot of space. It's close quarters combat when you're rushing inside, right? And so sometimes there's not a lot of room for moves or things. You got to be a little bit more direct. Somehow he's able to create some space and rush. Like when you're rushing on the edge and you have sort of a little bit more area to like build momentum and put a move on and stuff because you're operating in a wider space. He kind of brings that ability inside, which is kind of hard sometimes. It's pretty unique for him. So he can rush on the edge. He can rush inside. And I think he's just, because he's kind of like I said again, like sort of a in-between type of end tackle, he kind of brings a little different style of rush to the front.
Is that a challenge for you as a staff? Obviously, I like to rotate guys in, but the D-line's playing pretty good right now, and now you're going to have to get him into the mix. Is that at all a challenge from a defensive?
No, I wouldn't say that. No, I mean, I think it's, again, like we all our guys play the same style, and then it's just a matter of, as you get into trying to figure out how you want to rush, if you have the opportunity, these guys do a really good job of sort of trying to limit your substitutions and quick snapping and keeping guys on the field. So for us, the factor is really going to come in like how we get guys on the field to rush, and if we can, and where we want to put those guys in for the matchups that we want. So in terms of our normal rotation, like, he's just going to be part of the group and go play ball for us.
Were you surprised that there's somewhat challenges between studying for an offense that doesn't have a legit number one wide receiver where they can spread the ball out with 4 or 5 different guys that average anywhere between 5 to 8 catches per game depending on the matchups?
Honestly, I think it probably lends back into our philosophy of we've got to be good at what we're doing, because you can't say we're going to take this guy away and then that stops the offense, obviously. And I would say, Matt's done a really good job of structuring the offense and coaching the quarterback to get the ball to where it's supposed to go, right? You have a coverage, there's the answer, ball's out to it quick. So I think it sort of almost leans back into our saying man, we've just got to run our defense and play our coverages right and be tight when we need to be tight, or be off where we need to be off, or whatever that is, so that, because you're not just focusing on we got to take a guy out or anything like that. That's obviously not the case. They're all really good players and they all do it, I think the structure of the offense is really good. They do a good job of just putting those guys in the spots to be successful. So we can't worry about who's where and which guy's doing what. We've got to sort of play our defense and play our coverage and be right in our rules, and then it should play out from there.
Expect the action game is pretty. Sports play action game is pretty explosive. From what you've seen, what makes it so dangerous week in and week out?
Their play action game? Yeah, I mean, it's. I would say, going a little bit back to they structure everything during the week, right? So their run game marries very well with their pass game and their play action game. So they're giving you the same looks. So it's run, then all of a sudden you step up and there's space behind you. And then the quarterback's talented. He's got a good arm. He's not afraid to put the ball down the field. Sometimes people don't want to do all that stuff or hold on to it and all those sort of things. So I think he's willing to take some of those shots and put the ball up there and trust his receivers, the cadre of receivers, to go make plays. So I think there's an element of trust and belief in the system and just launching it. So I mean, there's going to be balls going down the field. I don't think they shy away from that. And really going back to the basis of it, the structure of their motions and shifts and pre-snap stuff that puts you on edge and just try to put you at disadvantageous positions before the snap. So now you're worried about, I'm shifting, I'm moving, am I bumping? Oh, ball snapped, is it run? Now it's a pass. That's how they try to marry their whole thing up. So trying to keep our guys' eyes in the right places and keep sort of a calm mind about us will be part of defeating all that, because they try to put you at unease before the snap even happens. You know what I mean? And then that gets you in oh, I'm stepping up, and try to create that space behind you. So there's probably a few different factors there. There's a long
answer. Yeah, actually, to follow up on that, you spent time in New York when his brother, Mike LaFleur,
sure did,
was a play caller. So how much does that time of understanding just the rules of how the offense wants to work, because obviously there's a lot of similarities, how much did that time, will that time help, this week in terms of being able to game plan, okay, I know with this look, they might try to do this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm sure Matt's talking to his brother about our defense more than I'm talking about their offense. So, whoa. We got a fine system here? All right. I mean, I think there's crossover with our offense, obviously, in how we operate. There's crossover. I mean, obviously played the Vikings. We practiced against the Rams in preseason. There's just a lot of crossover from that style. And, I feel like they do have a similar, they've played this front before in this defense enough that I think there's an understanding of how we're going to attack them and they're going to attack us. And it's sort of again, it comes back to who's going to out execute sort of that plan. I don't know there's going to be a ton of mystery of what anyone's doing necessarily. It's going to be about execution.
New England to go at D'Angelo Ross a little bit more than they did in that matchup, and do you expect if he's out there again that Green Bay maybe spends a little bit more time trying to get the ball at him?
We didn't necessarily have that expectation. I mean, I know Sting's a good player, so maybe teams don't want to challenge him all the time. But at the same time, I mean, just talking about they operate in the structure of their offense, and if you're trying to force the ball to a certain side or a certain place or whoever that is, maybe that takes you out of your offense. I'm not sure that's something that they want to just live in and operate in. So D'Lo played a really good game for us. We have confidence that he'll do it again.
Thanks, Bert. Thanks,
Cool.
Bert.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Sit up there.
Yeah, we want the breakdown to start, though. Yeah,
Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. All right. Second road game in a row. So the challenges that come with that are playing in, it's allegedly nice weather, but playing in a different environment. So as a dome team, that's I enjoy that. I think it's an added challenge for our guys. And then we're going up against, you can argue that Rich Bisaccia, he's an old school guy, and I love that guy. And you can argue that he's one of the best special teams coaches in the NFL. He's got different personnel package than most players do, or than most coaches use. So he uses size players, first round pick like Van Ness, Mosby, Kingsley Enagbare, Cooper from Texas A&M. These are the guys that are like rushing your punts and covering down on kickoffs. So they're bigger. And then he's always done a great job, which is so dynamic about Coach Bisaccia is he goes and he finds certain traits. Fast, kid out of Washburn. Fast, Nixon, the returner. Turns him into an all-pro returner, never returned before. Played behind Debo at South Carolina. Let me go get a 4-3 guy, turn him into a special teams nightmare. And that's what he is. And now he's all-pro returner, consecutive years. Gunner on the outside, personal protector in Zane Anderson. So having size guys mixed in with dynamic special teams players is a direct correlation to how Bisaccia has built that unit. And it's going to provide a unique set of challenges, especially playing in Green Bay. Good returners, fast cover players on the outside here, and then size players rushing. So it's going to be a unique recipe to try and go and affect and win this football game in a kicking game this weekend. Questions?
Frank, what happened with the missed field goal by Kanye last week?
Yeah, operation not as clean as we need it to be. Simple as that. So throwing laces, getting around and not trusting and staying through it. That comes with the territory. Nothing is 100%. Nothing is 100%. So, which I think I made a joke before, but like there's no such thing as a chip shot field goal, right? So every time you walk out on the field, we expect points. We have to be precise. I mean, that is a repeated skill set that is trained and honed, and we need to be on it every single time. So didn't hurt us, but like we're going into a dynamic environment and a big game, so we need to make sure we capitalize any chance we get.
You talked about the weather out at Lambeau this weekend. It's supposed to be nice, but what are the challenges of
playing
like
that? And just studying film and the way they're kicking off, their punt direction, how they're playing accordingly. And I just think, it's not that it's foreign to me specifically, but, we get cozy here in NRG where, there's no elements at all. So I just think that, we just have to prepare the right way. And look, those guys are pros. Every time they step on the field, they'll be able to address it accordingly, as specialists specifically. But don't forget the returners are specialists as well. So going out, tracking it in the sunlight, if it's bright, sunny Midwest day, that type of thing. So we'll be on it. Go ahead.
Townsend is among the fewest punts returned in the league. What's his average hang time, and ideally, what would you like his hang time to be?
Yeah, I can't give an exact average hang time because the punts are variable, so different positions of the field. So he does a really good job of hitting the ball above a 4.5, in my opinion, in the midfield area, which is a hard thing to do. Most are in the 4.3s and 4s, 4.3s, 4s, 4s. We'd like a 5.0 ball just like everybody would regularly. Haven't had exactly that because, again, if you're hitting from midfield or at the 40-yard line, you're going to be placing the ball more directionally than let it rip. You look at would be the first punt of the game in New England, and he flipped the field pretty darn good. He let that thing fly right there around the nickel spot, and that's ideally what we're looking for is yards and distance. But of course, you've heard me say this before. Nothing more critical than matching distance, matching hang, and width and location of the ball. So if we're playing a returner like Keyshawn Nixon, who can circle the wagons all the way across the field, you need to put that thing into a corner. So that's going to be a big thing for us.
Was he doing a good job considering you've had so few returned against you?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. We can always do better. We can always do better to try and provide more consistency. But some of those that you have, like we had a couple that were over towards the sideline unfielded, that goes into it. Man, if you can, I don't know if you'll meet a special teams coordinator that's going to say, hey, call it 45 yards and they're waving them off every time, like that's a good day at the office. So matching the width and allowing the gunner to go down there in the face, like that's a good situation for us. We would like that to continue.
When you've got a special teams standout like Neville who gets pressed into linebacker duty, can you still steal some special teams reps with him? Is it a full one-for-one replacement? Somebody else takes his spot? Like, how do you kind of approach something?
Yeah,
like
and
that?
every week's different. So whatever we have to do, and this is a sentiment of a lot of people that I work for, but especially D'Amico, like whatever we need this week, it's a weekly business. So whatever that recipe is to go and execute your game plan and play with the guys who are available. Yeah, there's a next man up mentality and philosophy across all phases, all three of us. But there's definitely going to be some give and take relative to one of your better special teams players. So whoever's stepping in defense, like an understated storyline last week, D'Angelo stepping up and playing some corner for us, like that actually just more than anything fires me up for a guy who's just earned it along the way. Daily input and has grown, steps up, and goes out there and has himself a game. So whoever that might be, whether that be Nev, whether that be Hutch, whether it be Metch, doesn't matter. Whether that be Cade playing a little bit more in the kicking game. So, yeah, just excited for any of those guys who daily earn it and they get a shot to go and really step a little bit more into the spotlight. Love that. Love that for Nev. Love that for D'Lo and whoever else that may happen for.
You said you and Dari joked about the gloves
Okay.
where y'all had he picked up a holding penalty. Is there a white glove rule this week? They're rocking the all whites. Is that
what they're doing?
Yeah, is that
It's
something?
good intel. Now I can start and put it in my presentation for Saturday morning. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, you're lying to me. You probably know what color cleats they're wearing, but
Yeah, I think that this should be a mandate that the equipment staff only has whatever that's the only thing available, and that way there's no options. But I don't know if you can do that.
They just signed Brandon McManus to be the new kicker. Just what stands out about him, and is there sometimes challenges of preparing for a guy who was on the roster?
Yeah, I think it's a unique situation because he hasn't kicked in the new kickoff scheme, the dynamic hybrid kickoff. So, but it's funny about Brandon. Most kickers are using essentially a three-step approach because hang time's out the window. So he has always done that. Did it in Denver, did it in Jacksonville. So have played him in 2 recent games. He's a really good kicker. Pro's pro and had clearly a successful career. So they made the move to get him up to the active roster. We have to be ready for wherever he's placing the ball in kickoffs.
The new kickoff rules, does it matter whether you're playing inside or outside as far as return game is concerned?
Yeah, it does. I think that just the way the ball, like, there's more mishits outside because you see it. You saw it one for the Packers in the opener against Brazil. Okay, you saw it in Buffalo. When you have to hit the ball harder to get it further down the field and into the wind, you get more action if it doesn't come off on the sweet spot of the foot. So there's going to be that more often outside than inside and relative to the leg strength of the kicker. So the ability to circle the ball, circle behind it, and field it as cleanly as possible is important for return men. And if that's drifting towards a sideline or a bench or an end zone or the other end zone, whether you got to get up underneath it or, hey, that ball's going to carry, make sure you're back on it, it's going to matter. It's going to matter. So I think we're good. Okay, guys. See you in Green Bay.
All right.